So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell people that it's you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Gish with Vish. In some ways, this is Gish with Vish 7, but in other ways, it's also kind of Gish with Vish 2, because this is only our second Dwayne Gish video. Because as it turns out, he didn't do very many videos, right? Like, a lot of his stuff is just debates, and I've tried doing debate reactions live. It doesn't work very well. Because basically when the other person is going, there's very little for me to add, at which point, well then why am I streaming? Because, you know, my streams need to be mostly not the video. Otherwise, I'm really running afoul of things like, you know, fair use. So that's why we haven't done a whole lot of these, because it's hard to find the videos. But Vishanti, how are you today?
I am tired AF.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It's been a very, very busy 2 weeks, and this week was even busier than last week, so gonna be taking a very solid nap today to try to recoup.
Okay.
I will say though, thank you to Joshua G for purchasing this item off of my wish list.
Ooh, can you get a little bit closer to center line?
It's the
Nope, closer to center
Handbook
line.
to the Old Testament.
To your right?
2.
To your right. There it is. Okay.
Sorry, I don't know how big the frame is. It's Josh Bowen's Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament.
Nice.
Volume 2. So, thank you, Josh, for that. And, yeah, it was very pleasant to have kind of a stressful day and come home and have a present sitting on my porch.
That is always nice. Yeah, and yeah, there are wish lists linked in the description. So if people are feeling generous, that's one option. Now we have a couple things to read out real quick. DM Luca was a trilobite confirmed wing set at 3:03 p.m. like yesterday, apparently, for $5. Time is an illusion. Lunchtime doubly so. Yes, agreed. This is agreed. Yeah. Christopher Kennedy Atheist, who's been a member for 9 months, is at the annual level, says, well, this is backwards, but it says Gia is a bag of dicks. And I don't know who Gia is, but I don't know, what did she ever do to you? But, you know, we'll drink for it anyway, because I'm pretty sure you just forgot to reverse the AIG.
Oh, Meldeborn, you're thinking of Josh Bowen's new slavery book.
Which is
They were
excellent.
just asking, is the new volume 500 pages longer than the first one? No, that's the new slavery book.
Yeah, I read that in
like
manuscript.
A good solid 300 or 400 pages. It's just like crazy good. But it's because he included every relevant ancient Near Eastern law.
Yeah, like you don't then need to go get another reference book, right? It's just right there.
Yeah, he just threw it all in.
Yeah, screw it. All my references are just typed out in long form in the appendix.
Yeah, and he did a lot of the translating for certain texts himself, so
yeah,
pretty good.
All right, we're gonna get into it, but real quick, I want to say, hey, if you live in Georgia, the state in the United States, not the country, there is a fair chance that you have been illegally removed from the voter rolls, and that's not according to me. That's according to the Republican state government there. So, what I would encourage you to do, since there's a state level and local elections coming up this year, like in a few months here, double check to see if you're still enrolled to vote, and they're working on fixing the problem, but they're doing it very, very slowly. So you might want to take an interest in that, and you know, go check, because I don't know, maybe you want to exercise your right to vote that has been illegally taken from you by the state government of Georgia, not according to me, not according to someone else, but according to the state government of Georgia, who has said, yes, this was illegal. So, fun times. Just thought I'd throw that out there. You know, a little PSA for all the Georgians. Is that it? Is it Georgians? It's not Georgites or anything. Yeah, Georgians. Okay.
No, it's Georgians.
Look, Georgia didn't exist as a, polity back when I was hatched, so it's hard for me to keep track.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay, so we are here to take a look at this video. This is The Origin and Age of the Universe, which is a speech by Dwayne Gish, which was given on May 19th, 1999, which means, one, I'm not going to pretend that he should know things that happened after May 19th, 1999, right? Because we're going to be fair. Dwayne Gish, as far as I know, wasn't a prophet or a seer or a psychic or any of these things. So it's okay for him to not know things that weren't going to be known until the future for him. It also means that video quality is going to be a little bit weird, which is why I've just chosen to replace anything that's too dark with a moving background for funsies. If y'all hate it, let me know, and I will turn it to just the grayish black background of nothingness that is actually what I'm looking at. Vandelli 1998 for $4.99 says, I've listened to all of Josh's books on Audible so far. Didn't know he had an updated one. Need to get on that. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know. Yeah, it's Georgians. Okay. TM Luca was a trial by Confirmed Wings says, did they announce it on Fox News? I don't know. That's not where I heard about it, but maybe they did. I don't watch a whole lot of Fox News. They actually do sometimes have some pretty decent like coverage of like live ongoing trials. So if you're into watching live courtroom proceedings, Fox is actually a pretty good source for that. But that's mostly because they just play the video and audio feed from the courtroom.
Yeah, that's the thing about cable news is when you're not listening to talking heads, news coverage is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
For most of them, because nobody's trying to give brain dead commentary on it, so.
The Office says, sorry for the awkward chats I made you read when I was seriously sleep deprived for $19.99. Hey, I appreciate the generosity, and don't worry about it. I wasn't upset or anything. All right, so let's talk about what we do here. So we're going to listen to Dwayne Gish, but we have some drinking rules. You've already seen one of them, which is that if someone super chats or milestone chats something to the effect that AIG is a bag of dicks, we take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Dwayne Gish says something that's so stupid we just kind of have to drink. We'll also take a drink if he tells a joke that doesn't land or a story that didn't happen. Now, with the story that didn't happen, it is a little bit of a judgment call. But if it really, really, really sounds like he's making up the story of how he converted some, obviously atheist museum docent, because you can't believe in evolution or deep time and be not an atheist, to young Earth creationism after his daughter asked him whether or not stratigraphy was used circular reasoning for dating. Because that doesn't sound like a story that happened. And we'll take a drink for that, because, like, come on, man. Pretty sure that didn't happen. We'll also take a drink if Mr. Gish here mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or mentions various, leadership people or prominent members of that political movement, or if he mentions any of their more historically significant activities in, like, the 1940s. Now, if for some reason he's talking about, like, postal service in, like, 1942 Berlin, I don't really care, because I have no idea what that would have to do with anything. So, the more, like I said, historically significant ones, which, I'm trying to stay on the good side of YouTube's monetization, but they make it basically impossible. You know that last stream I did where I said the same thing? Yeah, that was also demonetized automatically.
Look, I've been really good about not dropping the F-bomb.
Oh, no, you have. Look, it's
not me.
It's been every single one of, like, the past 7 live streams have been automatically demonetized. Yeah, it's getting really, really bad. Also, Pterodactyl in French Limestone Geek has been a member for 6 months and sent a blank membership chat. If that was supposed to have a message, please let me know. Sometimes YouTube is weird like that. Just tag me if it was supposed to have a message. Okay, we'll also take a drink if Dwayne Gish references a source, and the source, after we check on it, not only fails to support his claim, because just like with the laws of LERFs, right, whenever creationists cite a non-creationist source, it always fails to back up their actual central contention. But if it not only fails to back him up, but actively contradicts him, it says, no, in fact, not only is that not true, but, like, the opposite is true, we call that a Trojan source, and we take a drink. We also have one that I don't think will come up, which is ad hominid, which is when creationists use the specimen Lucy of Australopithecus, and then pretend that that is the source of all knowledge about all of Australopithecus as a whole genus, that one individual. So, for instance, if they're like, oh, well, we don't know if Australopithecus could walk upright because Lucy didn't have the bottom of her skull or the feet. Well, okay, but, like, other individuals that we have of Australopithecus have both, so, like, this doesn't seem like a problem. That's ad hominid. We can only do it once per stream. We can also take a drink if anyone sends a super chat or a membership milestone chat that contains one of the kaiju emojis. That includes Mothra, Godzilla, and King Ghidorah. And also, if anyone sends a gifted memberships, we will drink for each gifted membership. So, for instance, You send 5 gifted memberships, I'll take 5 drinks. Now that goes to about 30. If you send 30, I'm not going to count out 30 individual drinks. I'm going to finish what I have. I'm going to add 30 to the drink count, and then I'm going to go get another drink, and I will come back. That's kind of the deal there. Which I guess actually means if you want to give me 30, the strategic way to do it is just space it out. So you give like 5, and then you just do that 6 times. Is the strategic way.
A madman is reading my mind right now in the chat. They said, since Dwayne Gish knows God's plan, shouldn't he know everything that's coming after this video? And that was the same thought that I had when it's like, oh yeah, we can't hold Dwayne Gish responsible for things that were discovered after this video was made. But like, you know, if the Bible has all the answers, shouldn't he already know the things that were going to be discovered? I mean...
Well, I don't think he would say that the Bible contains explicit predictions of all future events. I don't think that would be his theology.
I don't know.
I mean...
Because, look, evangelicals seem to have no problem, like, going full Nostradamus mode anytime something of significance happens in the world, so color me skeptical.
I'm going to say this, right? Having been immersed in that world for a bit, there are individuals who are like that, and they tend to be the ones who get a lot of attention because they tend to be loud. But I actually think that the average evangelical is not someone who would consider themselves to have like a gift of prophecy or to be able to predict the future on the basis of either reading the Bible or on direct revelation from God. I don't actually think that's the case for most of them. It's not the case for most of the people who I knew growing up as evangelicals or whom I'm still in contact with who are still evangelicals. But you do get that. And I also found that the people I knew and a lot of the people that I still know who are in that sort of world tend to be very critical of people like Kat Kerr or whatever who think that they can come up with these prophecies.
Look, there's degrees of lunacy in the evangelical movement. So she's fringe.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I do love her and her brightly colored hair telling hurricanes to go away, and it just doesn't work, and that just doesn't faze her.
Literally waving a stick like a shaman or something. Just, oh my god.
Go away, hurricane. Okay.
Okay.
DM Luca was a trilobite confirmed win for $5 says, you'd be demonetized less if you didn't review as many poster children of Godwin's Law. Yeah, that's probably true. Al Trucker, who's been a member for 7 months, is at the amniote level. Sent 3 Vishanti emojis, 1 Pelagic Tunicate, boo, but also a Ghidorah and a Mothra, so we take a drink for that. There's also a Petop in there, which I hope is directed at Dwayne and not either of us. And then there's a triangle beam and the correct sessile tunicate, the only one that should be used.
It just wishes it could be pelagic.
It doesn't. It's very happy, just vibing.
Being a Dutch tunicate.
Yeah. Well. All right. I don't know if we missed it. Oh, we have prediction. If it's not clear what Dwayne Gish is going to say, and one of us predicts it, we'll take a drink for a correct prediction. Also, sometimes Godzilla or Mothra can come by audibly. If that happens, we take a drink. I think that covers it. If it doesn't, I'm sure I'll remember it on the day. Now remember, this is a quote-unquote drinking stream, and I am having a little bit of gin and tonic with some prickly pear syrup, by the way, instead of lime.
What gin are you drinking today?
Oh, I'm drinking cheap-ass gin because this is work gin.
Okay.
I have some Beefeater for later, which is a bit nicer. Still not super fancy, but good enough. But this is bottom of the barrel.
Snob,
okay.
So
well,
I'm not gonna.
I can't get Hendrix every single time.
Well, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, okay, listen, I understand the difference between it'll get you drunk and this is my sipping.
Oh yeah, no, this is not
alcohol,
my sipping gin.
So.
This is work gin.
Yeah.
This is gin that I bought for work. So my work booze is always worse than my relaxation booze. Sometimes it's just like I bought 3 nip bottles of the cheapest whiskey I could buy.
Yeah, it's like, look, if you're gonna have a sipping bourbon, you know what to pick. Like you go Maker's Mark or something like that. If you're just trying to get drunk, wild turkey, baby.
All right, so that being said, though, please feel free to participate in a way that does not get you drunk. Have water, tea, soda, I don't care. Take a pull on a vape pen. You do whatever you want. Just be careful if you do participate with something that can cause you to have altered brain chemistry, shall we say. That you don't then go out and drive or operate heavy machinery or try to text your ex. Like, don't do those things, right? And I know every once in a while I get someone's like, well, I have a really good relationship with that one ex. All right, fine, you can text that one because you normally do anyway. But don't text the other ones. All right, with that though, I think we're ready. Actually, I have an ex like that. It's fine. Oh, by the way, Dwayne Gish just got finished telling us about how he likes to visit some guy's in-laws in
been to
Russia,
Russia.
or something. Yeah. He's like,
Yeah, it's
I go
like,
to
okay.
St. Petersburg. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
All
I
right.
mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just like, I don't see the relevance. Vandalia 998 for $1.99 says, just finished getting my flu and COVID boosters. Nice. I highly
Nice.
encourage people to do that.
Got my flu booster, haven't got my COVID booster, but it was scheduling. I try to do it on the weekends so that when I feel kind of not good for about a day and a half, then I have time to recover. So
yeah, that's a good idea. Because both of them will make you feel a bit off at the very least.
Yeah.
At least
flu was
not...
fine. I got mine and I was just like do, but that COVID one tends to take me for a spin.
My least favorite vaccine I ever got was the anthrax vaccine. Yeah, it was terrible. It made my arm completely useless for like a day and a half. I physically couldn't move it. Once I put on my coveralls and I had to use my right arm to grab my left wrist to pick it up to push it through the sleeve. And then I had to pull it through the other end with the same arm just so I could get it on. It was rough. Anyway. Oh, another quick tip. If you're converting a VHS movie to a digital format, that VHS is going to be mono. Make sure you double check that your mono track hasn't just gone into one of the two stereo track of most modern video files, because that's what happened with this. I had to spend like a half an hour trying to make sure I could figure out how to get this thing to come through both sides on both tracks.
Look, this sounds light years better than Pete Greer from last week, so I'm not complaining.
True. Yeah, we're going to take a drink for the ICR or a bunch of scientists. No, I will accept they're not pastors, but they definitely do way more theology than science.
We're scientists, not...
Turkey Sloth says, Godzilla irritates Dwayne. Much better now. We'll take a drink.
Irradiates.
Or irradiates? Oh, yeah, it does say irradiate. Oh, no, that is even better.
Irradiate.
That's why when I made Godzilla stats for 5e, I gave his breath weapon radiant damage, not fire. Yeah.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Godzilla speaks like a really distant relative of the Seraphim language?
From the cursed conlang circus?
Radiative, yeah.
I would like that. Sounds
Let's workshop
fun.
that later.
Yeah, let's workshop that. I don't think he has enough mouths, but like, I don't know. Which, by the way,
what if the plates can communicate similar ideas by flashing it?
Oh, there you go. Which, by the way, in case you aren't aware, there's this thing, Cursed Conlang Circus. It's currently in its second iteration. It's run by the channel Agma Schwa. If you're interested in conlanging as well as cursed videos, it's a fun time. Go check it out. I am in contact behind the scenes with the creator, and after he's done with this big project, we may look into doing some stuff as in cooperation, if not necessarily a full-on collaboration. We're not sure. We're still very much at the this is a neat idea phase. But go check out his channel. It's really cool. If anyone wants to link it in the chat, please go ahead. The
recent video on Ultra French is great.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Ultra French was
freaking
French. It's exactly what it sounds like.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
It's like French, but more French.
When he's reading his own text in Ultra French and he stops midway through and is like yeah.
Yeah, it's all the parts about learning French that you hated in high school or whatever, and take all those parts and then just go full on with them. Yeah, we can't let any heathens in our scientific group. That's not really how science works. That's one of the nice things about science, right? Your religious views don't actually matter if your data and your analysis is good, right? You can do good science as a Christian.
Science puts data over dogma.
Oh, yeah. So Christians can do good science, Muslims, Buddhists, atheists, even, especially if you look at, say, the Nobel Prize roles, even Jewish people can do good science, or maybe especially, again, given the Nobel Prize roles, which are, they're very heavily overrepresented there. So what do you make up? Less than 1% of population of the Earth? What percent of Nobel Prizes for science? Oh, like 20 or something? Okay.
I just thought about Jewish physics and I started like...
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry. This is what happens when I'm chronically underslept and you start bringing up like...
No, it's actually obviously a globalist conspiracy to keep Gentile science down, because that's how science works. Yeah, that's the extra chapter that's usually not printed when you read the protocols. Yeah,
I had a dream last night that I was trying to convince my mom to go see Oppenheimer in a physical theater so that she could experience it on a big screen and not watch it on like a crappy TV.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure why. Of all things that come up in my subconscious, that happened last night, but there you go.
Hey. Oh, and Fitz of Karl Baugh's English Teacher's Rage for $2 says AIG is a bag of Bush Jr.'s vice presidents. Nice.
Well done. Well done.
Very nice.
That's incredible.
That guy once gave a speech on my aircraft carrier back when I was in the Navy. And all it meant was that all of us had to stand around in a hot hangar bay for like an hour listening to some guy talk about the mission, and we were all just like, dude, I'm just here to do my job. I don't care.
I wasn't the only one that pointed this out, but Dick Cheney looks like Burgess Meredith's penguin. Like, every time I saw him get behind a podium, I expected...
I wanted to ask Dick Cheney what it was like to shoot your friend, but unfortunately, I didn't really want to get in trouble, and there was no Q&A period, so what are you going to do? I'm sure it really was an accident.
Sure.
Okay, so here's the problem with that there, Dwayne. I happen to know enough about what you believed. And, well, you weren't a flat earther. You didn't believe in literal floodgates, even though there's literal floodgates in Genesis. They're what lets in the floodwaters. So, like, what's the deal with that? So that's one of the things that's been kind of bugging me lately about a lot of the... Well, we just take the scripture seriously from Young Earth creation. It's like, okay, sure. Seriously, maybe. But you can't tell me that you aren't reinterpreting it to fit things that you think are like parts of the scripture that are so ridiculous if taken literally that even you know they can't be true, right? Like that there are physical sluices in the dome above the flat earth.
He said they don't want people reinterpreting it. He just means they don't want people reinterpreting it after he's already decided what it means.
You know what? After all the apostles and councils and whatnot, Dwayne Gish finally came along. And he took a little bit from, like, you know, the Seventh-day Adventists, a little bit from Bishop Ussher, and he combined a bunch of stuff, and finally, Dwayne Gish is the guy who got the Bible right.
He's the final Christian.
Look, God should count himself lucky that Dwayne Gish came along to finally get God's word right. Ulf House Creek for 50 secs and the first super chat on the channel says AIG is a... I don't know... Look, I'm not even going to try, but I'm going to take a drink. If anyone else wants... That sounded a little bit too much Slavic.
That was me attempting a Nordic language with a Russian accent.
Yeah, I noticed.
It was very terrible. I apologize for mangling your language.
But thank you very much for the 50 secs. I always appreciate it when I get sex on the channel. That's probably what's demonetizing me, is all these people sending me sex.
Swedish is fine if it's wrong. Look, as a burgeoning polyglot, I try very hard to not mispronounce languages, but I have never learned, like, the phonetic structure of Swedish, so maybe one day I'll actually knuckle down.
Look, there are thousands of languages. You're not going to be able to learn how to pronounce all of them.
I don't learn them all.
You won't even be able to correctly pronounce all of them, which is a much smaller step than learning the language as a whole.
my brain has been constantly cycling Wheel of Fortune style through Russian, Romanian, Spanish, and Nahuatl. So it's a free-for-all up here.
Gonna pick up some Klingon.
I don't feel like I have any space left.
Ah, sure you do. John Smith for €2 says AIG is a Frodo of Cheney's. Nice. Take a drink for that. All right, let's hit play.
Fashions.
Yeah, I like this. This is an idea that you get in some like creationist circles, which is not the idea that science is getting farther and farther away from being wrong, right? Because science is less about an approach to truth and more about eliminating ideas that we know can't work, right? So science is about a collective of people working to become less wrong about the universe and how it works. And Dwayne here, though, seems to think that it's just like, well, whatever kind of passing fancy people seem to have, like, oh, well, today the Big Bang is really popular. But who knows, in 100 years, maybe, like people will think about the great sneeze of Arkle seizure, and that's how the universe came to be. You just sneeze it out, and we all can live in fear of the coming of the great cosmic hanky. Hey, sure, maybe that's what'll... But the thing is that that's not what's happening, and you can actually tell that with science, right? So, for the past 150, 200 years or so, science has been refining its theories, its laws, its mathematical descriptions of things, and things like that, right? And so, less and less of our ideas are being turned over. It used to be, back in like the early 1800s, that a scientific theory, I mean, it could get turned over like nothing. But there hasn't been a scientific theory overturned in like a century at this point. And there's a reason for that. It's because we're getting rid of the ideas that don't work. And we're left only with the ones that keep working. So, on the other hand, I mean, theology changes in different rates in different groups. But if you wanted to find a group where their theology was changing very, very, very rapidly, you might look at Protestant Christianity. Which, I mean, look, there's a reason that they've had, like, thousands of schisms in the past 200 years, whereas the schisms within Christianity that happened before that could be counted on, like, one hand? Let's see. Okay, so we've got the...
Baptist and Anabaptist?
Well, no, I'm not going to count Protestant schisms. I can't do that.
Oh, well,
fine. We can count non-Chalcedonians, the quote-unquote Nestorians, the Great Schism, the various Old Catholics, but that happened around the Protestant Reformation, but they weren't actually Protestants, and I guess, like, Old Believers, and yeah, that basically covers it. You get, like, the weird stuff, like, exactly what the history of the Maronite Church is. Maybe that's a sixth schism.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably count that, but...
Yeah, but the thing is also, their self-understanding is that they were always in communion with the Bishop of Rome. Some historians disagree. I don't know. So, like, but, like, yeah, being generous, we could probably fill up two hands. So, yeah. When it comes to groups that don't change their theology, Dwayne Gish is probably in the wrong group for that. Because boy,
you're
does it
need
change.
A lot more hands than that. You don't have enough claws.
I'm using your silly monkey hand numbers because I know that most of my audience are silly monkeys. With their we retain pentadactyl limb configurations from early amniotes. Oh, great job. Yeah, good for you. Like, you don't have. I have a digit 1 too. It's just not as opposable.
Okay.
I agree.
So that we can just make it fit whatever we want.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a drink for, like, the reason science is bad, actually, and the reason the Bible is good, actually, is because only one of them doesn't adapt to new data, and it's the Bible, the good one. Okay. That's cool. Imagine thinking
we get better at it.
But also, imagine thinking the Bible hasn't been revised. I'm like, okay. Just looking into the textual history of the majority of the Bible, a lot of it comes in with extra revisions that have happened over the course of millennia, right? Like, we know Job.
Can we talk
didn't,
about the Johannine comma? Like,
yeah, the Johannine comma, the story of the adulterous woman. Basically, the entirety of the Torah, except for Deuteronomy, is just a pastiche of various sources. Deuteronomy is pretty much the only part that probably has a single author, and even then, it's not clear that there haven't been revisions.
First,
Job,
second, third Isaiah.
Yep.
Like,
Job has an extra end bit tacked on that gives Job a happy ending that almost certainly wasn't original. Like, yeah, the Bible has been revised. Now, granted, that revision has, I would say, mostly stopped. Most people are now just like doing textual criticism to try to recover what the most likely original reading was and then going with that as for translation purposes. But like, yeah, the Bible's been revised many times. TD Lane, member for 20 months, is at the tetrapod level, says, "Somebody save us from Gishzilla," with a Godzilla emoji. Take a drink. Thank you very much.
That you missed a super chat before that.
Did. I missed a $2 super chat from Goop23. Sorry about that. Miss Frizzle has fashions in science.
I love Miss Frizzle.
Yeah, Miss Frizzle's pretty cool. I'm just taking another drink.
Wherever Dan McClellan is right now, he just took psychic damage and doesn't know why.
Yeah. He's probably like just hanging out with his family or something because like the weekend, and suddenly he's just got a splitting headache, and everyone's like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "I don't know. Someone must have said something dumb about the Bible somewhere."
Yeah, just Dad, what's wrong? Somebody just said something heinously incorrect about the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Question. How did we find out what those natural laws were?
It was a lot of things like observation and making predictions and seeing which kinds of predictions worked out and which kind of mathematical relationships we could derive from the predictions and data that we collected.
That sounds like a mouthful. Isn't there like a shorter way to call that?
A science.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love how he's just going with, there are unanswered questions in science. Therefore, it couldn't have happened. To which I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm going to take a drink. Here's a fun thing. That science has not answered a question does not mean that the answer is miracle. Now, I'm not going to say it can't be, because I don't know. I'm not omniscient. I almost said omnipotent. I'm not that either, but... Although, could you be omnipotent and not omniscient? Because then couldn't you just use your omnipotence to give yourself all the knowledge?
Maybe.
I guess you could voluntarily opt to be ignorant. I don't know. Look, I'm not a philosopher.
I'm not a philosopher. I don't care about this.
Vandali 1998 for 499 says, "There's the very first schism if you are in the camp that Christians branched off from Judaism. I've heard people it had so Christianity and modern Judaism both are descendants of Second Temple Judaism. And I mean, obviously they went in fairly different ways in various ways. Like, for instance, both of them actually end up taking most of their ideas from the Pharisees in Second Temple Judaism, because with the disruption of the temple, the only reason the Sadducees were in much power was gone, and then many of the other groups, like the Essenes, I mean, they had their apocalyptic battle, and it turns out the forces of God didn't come and save them, so kind of collapsed. And then, like, the different groups take on various aspects of that. Like, Christians stuck really hard with the whole resurrection of the dead thing, whereas Rabbinic Judaism did less of that from the Pharisees. And there's also various ways, like, the interpretive frameworks for what Christians would call the Old Testament or what Jews would call the Tanakh were different. They had different struggles about canonicity for the texts that they wanted to have in there. So you can call it a schism if you'd like. It wasn't a schism within Christianity. It was a schism between the surviving groups that had descended from Second Temple Judaism after the destruction of the Second Temple. And really, even into the 1st and 2nd century, the group that was developing into modern Rabbinic Judaism and the group that was developing into Christianity weren't fully separate, right?
Goop 3 says the Essenes didn't collapse. We still have Romat.
Good point. Yes, he is in fact an ordained Essene, the last surviving member of that ancient and venerable order, which I'm pretty sure didn't have ordinations. But whatever, that's fine.
Only one.
Whoa, that's the only possible. What if they created themselves supernaturally, Dwayne? What about that? Couldn't do it naturally. What if they did it supernaturally? Plus, you can't just assert that they couldn't do it naturally. You're going to have to actually make some arguments, but maybe he will, right? We have a lot longer in this. But yeah, just automatically setting up that false dichotomy. I'll take a drink for it. False dichotomies are dumb and I hate them. Also, y'all just narrowly avoided... Oh, no, you haven't avoided the Bilbo. My goodness, less than half of you have liked this video that are watching, which means I officially like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So go hit like, and you won't get Bilbo'd in the future. Or now. I try to wait till the half-hour mark to see if I need to. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm open to it. I'll listen. I'm very open to the possibility that there you could find some problem with naturalistic explanations that could only be solved by a supernatural explanation. I don't know how that would work, right? But then again, I haven't seen all the possible arguments. But hey, you know what? It would be really cool if there was something like that, I think, right? You know, there's something beyond the universe that would... Yeah. For one thing, hey...
Yog-Sothoth.
Well, yeah, the gate and the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, take that, Zool. Who needs a separate
right.
gatekeeper and a keymaster? No. Yog-Sothoth is the gate and the key. So, take
right.
that. Okay, so I think what he's getting at is I can get to, like, the Spinoza's God of philosophy from science, and then the Bible is going to take me from that to a particular conception of deity that is a particularly Christian one. And I know some people object to that, like, line of reasoning, but I think it's okay to have two separate arguments for I think there is a God from a philosophical or scientific standpoint, and then to have that be a separate train of thought from what gets you from that God, I think that God exists, to I think it happens to be the one that is described in this set of religious texts or theology. And so I'm okay with that, as long as he does a good job of getting to the first part, where he gets to, like, the Spinoza's God of the philosophers kind of thing. I don't think he's going to do it, though, because I'm pretty sure he's going to lie about science.
They usually don't clear that first hurdle.
Yeah. Well, part of it is that instead of using the various philosophical arguments for a broad theism, they tend to just hone in on pseudoscience, which is not how you go about doing that, which is also not how Spinoza really went about doing it either. So, like, you're trying to get to Spinoza's God in a worse way than Spinoza did. Which, good job. You're now discount Spinoza.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. You're
great value Spinoza.
Spinoza from wish.com.
Yeah.
All right, we don't care about preaching.
Yeah, I don't care about the theology. Just get to the alleged science, man.
Yeah, look, I'm here for Dwayne Gish's arguments about the age of the universe. Like I've said many times, if you want to believe in the salvific work of Jesus Christ on the cross and the death and resurrection and all that, great. 1, don't deny science. 2, don't use it as an excuse to mistreat other people. After that, I don't care. Do whatever you want with that. I'm just not here to address it because I don't care about that claim.
Jillian, the entire column is igneous, Ren, says in the chat, Mom says we have Spinoza at home.
Nice. Great. David Z for 2 beaver bucks says drinking, nonsense opinions, and Yog Sothoth. Yay! Yeah, Yog Sothoth is one of the outer gods that you can say on YouTube without getting demonetized.
Yeah.
There's one
Come
of the
for the
main three.
debunking, stay for the niche references.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Actually, one of my most recent scripts definitely had Azathoth in it.
Sweet.
And Yog Sothoth. And, not mentioned by name, but Nyarlathotep makes an appearance in there too.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went heavy into the Lovecraft on that one.
Man, and that, like, the niche references on a debunking channel is so fun. Like, shout out to Logic for that Virginia Arnoldson reference. Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, if you got... One, if you don't know who Virginia Arnoldson is, it's time to go watch some more Mr. Manticore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
He is in full-on Grandpa Simpson mode right now.
Seriously, look,
this
is a story he heard, which means it's almost certainly a story that didn't happen. So we're going to take a drink. I'm going to start skipping ahead a little bit, because I want to get to the part that isn't the story, because I don't care about your story, Grandpa. And I say that...
what we called them in those days.
But, like, I know plenty of older people who are perfectly coherent and don't go off on rambly stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just not. Yeah, we'll drink for don't ask me to verify anything. I'm just relaying it. Okay, I'm gonna take a drink.
Oh.
How dare we expect you to actually have sources for your claims in a talk about science? Who would do that? What you
poppycock?
Like, come on. Most people here have been to high school or college or something, right? When you write a paper, you don't need to include citations or sources. You can just say, "Well, I heard it once and I can't verify it." Which actually,
trust me, bro.
There's actually a "trust me, bro" quotation in Genetic Entropy by John Sanford, his big book. He's like, I once saw a quotation, although I can't find the source anymore. And then he gives this quotation. It's like, dude, if you don't know the source, don't quote it. Just don't. You don't have to. You could just not.
You know what? I'm just gonna throw the triangle meme in there because honestly.
Oh yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure John Sanford chose to be well-informed and creationist and opted to not be honest. It's hard for me to come to other conclusions.
Professor Dave is doing a good job of taking down the DI folks one at a time. I have been haranguing him to take on John Sanford.
I mean, it would be interesting, and he does hang out with those guys a lot. They share a lot of work, shall we say.
Because look, it's like when you destroy a Horcrux, I feel like Cell Cordova is just gonna wither into dust.
Yeah.
When that happens.
All right. Oh, this is still the story. He's literally just recounting the Genesis 2 story. Are you kidding me? Dude. Maybe this is another reason we don't have too many of these Gish with Vish things, because it takes him forever to get to the point.
I'm sorry, that was a good skip. Create for me a beautiful foot.
Also, I'm pretty sure he's just going into casual sexism, and I'm just going to take a drink for it.
Yeah. Yep, casual bigotry. I'm just going to mark that off on my bingo card.
And yet you still have the
Yawn.
rib.
Her.
Good, that's the point. And we're only 11 minutes in. Oh, by the way, there are occasional audio and video, like, just pauses in the file. I haven't cut them out because I don't care enough. But it's not me just randomly pausing the video. Just wanted to let people know that that's a thing that happens in this video. Sorry. I suspect it was actually stitched together from separate videos that were uploaded to YouTube back in the days before you could have very long YouTube videos.
Oh, yeah. When there's like a 10-minute limit.
Right. I think what has happened is that this speech was uploaded from a like VHS to digital transfer, but then it was cut into small bits for early YouTube, and then someone else downloaded those and stitched them back together, but didn't do a great job of lining up all the clips, and so that's why that happened. I don't know this. It's just my educated guess. So if that's not what happened and you're the one who uploaded this and you want to disagree with that, sorry. Feel free to correct me, I guess. DM Luca was a trilobite confirmed wing for $2 says, the well-known creationist foot fetish with the Godzilla. Hey, you know what? Creationists can have whatever kind of fetishes they want as long as everything's consensual. I'm not here to kink shame creationists. Not my deal. I mean, a lot. We know roughly how big it is, how old it is, what it's mostly made of, which is mostly nothing, but what the other parts that aren't nothing are made of. Yeah, we know a fair bit. We just recently found the most distant ever individual star detected, Yarandel. Like, that's pretty sweet. Mm-hmm. Thank you, gravitational lensing. Thanks, Einstein.
Yeah, scientists are nerds too. Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah, like actually naming it after that like deep cut, not even Lord of the Rings, like Silmarillion reference right there.
Yeah, Silmarillion. Yeah, that's like.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the problem with what creationists largely think science is. They think it's in a lab.
Yeah.
They don't understand that there's field research, there's like practical experiments, there's how are you supposed to go in a lab when you're observing stars? Like generally you do that in a observatory? With telescopes?
So actually, there are places where a lot of astronomy is done remotely. So for instance, there's an observatory near where I live, and a lot of the telescopes are actually owned and operated by either the Vatican or a South Korean university. And the reason that they have telescopes out here in the United States is because that way the astronomers can keep a relatively normal sleep cycle where they can do astronomy during the normal daytime. So like they have a computer lab, I guess, but like they're not adding drops of stars into a beaker and like shaking it up to see what happens, right?
Yeah. Well, that's also when you have astronomers from across the world who will leverage multiple telescopes to look at an object, and they're all running them remotely, and that's very cool. That's one of the things that we had to do before James Webb Space Telescope is you would have to combine the observation powers of multiple telescopes to absorb a certain amount of light or whatever. So
we still do that sometimes. Like remember when
I mean, we still do it. It's just that you know,
that famous black hole picture
than
that black hole picture that came out not that long ago, and then the subsequent one that was even more detailed. They both used similar techniques, and they were both using telescopes across the entire face of the Earth to get multiple images in so that they could use a fairly complex mathematical system that I don't understand to resolve where there was noise versus signal and create an actual image of a black hole, a supermassive black hole in a distant galaxy, which is really cool. So, yeah. There are only some sciences that you should
Don't taste the star.
Don't taste the star.
Please do not taste a star.
Look, on the list of, like, can you taste it in science, there's a few things. Chemistry, sometimes. Sometimes you can taste the science. Most of the time, don't taste the science.
Well, look, you could taste anything in chemistry once.
Yeah, once. Food science, often the answer is yes. Please taste. Paleontology and geology, sometimes the answer is you must taste. It is a requirement. Astronomy is pretty much always like, no, you cannot taste the science. Sorry.
And even if you could, don't.
Although Coca-Cola did purport to once release a flavor that was allegedly space flavored, and I had it, and it kind of tasted like a cross between raspberry and cotton candy, which I don't think is how space tastes, but what do I know? I've never tasted space. Maybe that's exactly what space tastes like. I'm not going to go expose myself to a vacuum to find out.
Didn't, is it Scott Kelly, didn't he say that space is vaguely, like, smoky?
I don't know.
Like, when they come in from having done, like, a spacewalk, he said that their suits tend to smell kind of like smoke.
I feel like, though, that's, like, the solar radiation bombarding the suits and not so much, like, the vacuum itself.
What's that smell? Something burning? I'm alright.
Just my spacesuit. At least it's not you.
Just my spacesuit, it's fine.
So... Yeah, Fearmonger points out that Kent talks about things like tasting lead or rocks. You know, tasting lead might explain a lot of things about the Hoven family.
Hawkskull says in zoology, science tastes you.
True.
Lance's Paleo Corner, right after that, says you can't taste a star, but you can eat a starburst.
True.
And with Skittles, you can taste a rainbow, so I think this requires more.
Yeah, we need more research. Yeah, he's right. Take a drink. Well, what we can detect with various measurement devices.
Hey, question, where's the moon?
It's in space.
Is it in space?
Mm-hmm.
So when he says you can't go out into space and get stuff and bring it back and test it,
he's technically wrong.
Moon rocks.
Yeah, he is right for the majority of space, though. Like, most of space is far enough away that we can't go get it. So,
Great.
Yeah, but also, you know, we can correlate the things we can see in space to the things that we can just go collect and touch and whatnot. Like, helium. You ever notice how it's named after Helios, the Greek word for just sun? It's like, it's the sun element. Now, why is that? Well, helium is really hard.
Well, because it's a pagan science conspiracy.
Well, there is that, obviously, right? All of this science is, you know, godless heathenry, but also polytheistic, despite being godless somehow. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but just go with it.
Yeah, don't ask questions.
Yeah, so helium is a noble gas. So, as you might expect, it's really hard to detect chemically, right? Because it just more or less doesn't interact chemically. But there's this thing called an emission spectrum. And when various atoms are heated, it excites their electrons. And the electrons go into higher energy states, and then they drop down into lower energy states. And they emit a photon containing the energy difference between the higher state and the lower state. And if you see these photons, what you're actually seeing is direct evidence of an element being present. Now, when we were still figuring out the basics of the periodic table, it was noticed that elements had these emission lines when they were burned or otherwise heated. And so people were looking for new elements by just burning things and seeing what color light came out. Well, people noticed that if you looked for the emission spectra for various atoms in the sunlight, you would get expected ones, right? Like there's an iron band, there's there's a carbon band, there's a hydrogen band, lots of hydrogen, there's a big hydrogen band. But also there was another band that hadn't been detected on Earth, because again, it's really hard to just isolate a bunch of helium. And it had only been discovered in the sunlight so far. So it was an element that was known to be in the sun, not known to be on Earth. And so people made predictions about what it would be. They call it helium because it was detected in sunlight. And then later, we actually found the stuff here on Earth. So it's not like we just kind of look into the sky and make crap up. We can actually take what we see in the sky, use things that we have here on Earth, and figure out physical facts about what's up in the sky. Like that there's a new element we had detected in the sun, and we'll call it helium, because as far as we knew at the time, it only occurred in the sun.
Also, Fearmonger and Don Giovanni are both noting in the chat that apparently there are giant clouds of like organic molecules of ketones that are supposed to taste like raspberry.
Okay, maybe that's why the Coke.
Yeah, and that's why they made it raspberry, apparently. Which is delicious, because, like, raspberry's my favorite fruit.
I mean, yeah, raspberry's really... Look, I'm not saying that the Coca-Cola flavor was bad. I was just a little skeptical about...
I wouldn't want my Coke to taste like it, but... Hey, if space tastes like raspberries...
Inkboy for €2 says, takes a bite. Tastes like the Milky Way. Hey, Milky Way is an actual candy bar, at least here in the United States. So, you can taste the Milky Way, at least in America. I don't know about all those other countries. They're not real America.
You can taste Mars. There's a Mars bar.
True, there is a Mars bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you need a little touch of the good life, there's also $100,000 for the poor people out there who want to pretend that they're wealthy. You just eat $100,000. It's actually I kind of like the $100,000. You know, the lots of caramel peanuts. I like those. Anyway, Savage Crichton et al. 1990 Cobra for $5 says you can touch the moon at Johnson Space Center. Note that Johnson is not. Is not the one. Is not the one of the ones in the bag entitled AIG. Nice. Sorry, I had trouble getting through that because it was funny.
I've touched a meteorite at the Griffith Observatory.
Yeah, I've touched a few
Very
meteorites
cool.
at various museums. You can also, if you don't want to be in a museum and you're still doing touristy stuff, there's a moon rock in a window at the National Cathedral outside DC. One of the
That's
stained
right,
glass
there
windows.
is.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's also a aerospace museum not far from where I am that has a small moon rock. Can't touch it. You can look at it. So I know there's also a museum in Boston that has a Mars rock.
Neat.
So yeah, it was actually a meteorite that originated on Mars, got to Earth, and then a little sliver of it is in the Museum of Science in Boston. So that's also pretty cool.
John Smith says, but did you limb the meteorites?
I did not.
Nim.
No, I did not. I feel like a lot of people touch it, and it gets kind of grimy, and like that's like licking the hand of everyone who went into that museum for like the past like week. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't, like, I'm not a big germaphobe, right? Like I don't walk around with like, disinfecting wipes for every time I, like shake someone's hand or anything. But like I'm not going to go around licking doorknobs either. So Timo Lynch for €5 says taste tests. We still mentioned in a couple of mineralogy books when I studied, including highly toxic minerals. Also, Galaxy is a chocolate bar. Yeah. And yeah, you should eliminate the possible really, really toxic options from taste testing in geology. But even then, still, I know some geologists, and yeah, they lick rocks. It happens. For most of the universe, I'll give it to them. Like we said, for local stuff, less so, but okay. Hey man, we could still get warp drive. You never know. We probably won't get warp drive.
Yeah.
I mean, to some degree, yeah. There's always going to be unanswered questions about what's out there in the universe, but like that we can see, like the full electromagnetic spectrum, and in some cases, also things that are off the electromagnetic spectrum. Things like cosmic rays, which are mostly like protons. We can get like beta fluxes from various things. We can get we can even measure neutrino flux from the sun. There are solar observatories that use neutrino detectors that actually only work when it's local daytime because they need the entire planet Earth to shield them from solar radiation in order to adequately image the sun in neutrino radiation. That's
so
mind-boggling.
Okay. Fade to Gray, Trilobite Primogenesis, in the chat is asking you, Dapper, do meteorites give you flashbacks?
I mean, not as objects in a museum, but like if one were to like fall from the sky and like land outside or something, then yeah, probably. Fortunately, that hasn't happened much. So, yeah. Even though I do live not that far from Meteorite Crater, Arizona, which is it's pretty cool. I mean, the crater itself is really cool. The museum inside, it's pretty nice. It's not amazing. And it's also the only restaurant in like 200 miles. It's a Subway in like the basement of the museum. So, but then again, you have to go pretty far off your way from the highway to get to it. So it might actually be faster to just bypass it if what you're actually trying to do is get a meal. So, it's a fun place though. I like it. Been there 2 times, I think. I think it's only 2 times. It might be 3 times, but I know I've been there at least 2 times. I mean, that sounds conservative.
We are told.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Like he's like, all we can do is look out and see things. It's like, okay, but that's how you would count galaxies, right? Like,
yeah.
What's the problem there? Don Giovanni for $2 says Johnson's Jumbo is in the set that is AIG. Set theory, fun times. Which, by the way, set theory seems to be one of those things that Carl Boss seriously struggles with. So it's very interesting to watch him just not understand basic set theory. And I mean, like, in the way that, like, most 4-year-olds can understand set theory. I actually kind of agree that it's not a great argument against a personal God that's interested in your life, because if that God is in fact like as infinitely powerful as most Christians would say, then I don't see why in that infinite capacity that entity couldn't care about you as well as caring about a gigantic, universe. Because no one part or portion of that infinity is more or less small or accessible.
Dapper, Don Giovanni says you're missing the LBJ joke with that super chat. Johnson's Jumbo is in the set that's AIG. It's a bag of dicks joke because LBJ named his,
Yeah. Okay.
member.
Thank you. But I actually kind of agree that it's not a great counter argument to most versions of theism. That like, oh, the universe is big, so why should God care about this particular part? Because if God is actually like, infinite in both knowledge and capability, then I don't see why that would be a contradiction or hard to believe or unlikely. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a great argument to me. But then again, hey, if you think it's a good argument and that's a good reason for you to not believe in such a God, then go for it. Again, I don't really care. I mean, that's what's reported in Genesis. Let's remember that, right? In Genesis, the conception of the ancient Near East that we find reflected, cosmology that we find reflected in Genesis, is that like the Earth is composed of like Egypt, maybe a little bit south of that, the Levant, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and a little bit of like maybe the Greek islands or parts of the Eastern Mediterranean, and then around that is a dome supported by pillars. That also there's an ocean that goes all the way around that, and that the stars are set in the dome, and that the sun and the moon are either just on the other side or inside the dome, circling around. And that's the universe, right? The Bible describes a very parochial, small-scale universe when it talks about cosmic things, right? It's got pillars supporting the earth. There's an underworld, sure, but there's no understanding of like the size of just the earth on its own, the spherical nature of earth. It's setting within a solar system where it orbits a giant star. Well, giant relative to the earth. It's, as stars go, it's not that big. Like, none of that's in the Bible. None of it. In fact, when you get to this part in Genesis 1, after describing the creation of the sun and the moon, which are very, very local on a universe scale, right? It says, and he made the stars also. That's it. That's the whole bit for the whole rest of the universe. Because the Bible isn't describing the creation of a gigantic billions of light years across solar universe. It's describing a little snow globe. And when I say snow globe, there's literally gates where God pours in snow from his storehouses. If you want to take the Bible literally, at least, which I recognize most Christians don't, at least in that way. Weird how the authors of Genesis didn't seem to. No, that is not what firmament
the firmament's
means.
a dome. Like, dude,
let's take a drink.
Nah.
Yeah, so no,
that's Trojan source, by the way.
Oh yeah, that is a Trojan source. Yeah, so here's the thing, right? It's not hard to find out what rakia means in Hebrew, right? And the primary meaning is some solid piece of metal that's been beaten out into a sheet that you can then do something with, right? Like, why do you beat metal into a sheet? Usually it's so you can cover something in metal. It's one of the big reasons why you have sheet metal, at least at the time, right? People weren't usually making like big structural beams out of metal. They were making tools. Why do you have a sheet of metal? Well, you can cut tools out of it, or you can use it to encase something. So the rakia is literally a solid dome, perhaps not of metal, but of something, that is placed over the earth. If you wanted to say expanse, there were other words that you could use, right? You want to say a big amount of volume. There are ways to express that. Hebrew is not some deficient language. It just doesn't... gosh darn it, they were trying to say space. They ended up saying solid dome. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Hebrew just kind of not a great language, I guess. Yeah, like, no, that's not how it works. Hebrew was perfectly capable of expressing any idea people at the time were likely to have. And it turns out a big expanse of space is probably something they could understand if they were told about it. Because, again, they also weren't dumb. People, 4,000, 5,000 years ago weren't stupid. They just didn't have all of the, thousands of years of accumulated knowledge that we have. So, yeah, this whole idea that, like, oh, yeah, I'll just hit play. I'm ranting now. I recognize it. Oh, hey, you know what? It's time for a quick break.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's take a quick break. I'll pour some more gin. I will see you guys right afterwards. We'll do a quick little we'll listen to Beethoven's music for just a little bit, and then when we come back, I'll give a quick little message, and then we will be back on to Gish. So here comes the intermission. And we are back. Welcome back, everyone. Vandalian1998 for $10 says, going to have to catch the rest of the stream later. Need to go set up a new PC in time for my stream with @Jillian. The entire column is igneous, friend. We are going over the articles and why they failed. Ah, okay. Very interesting. Cool. Well, good luck. Setting up a new PC can always be a little bit dicey, so I wish you success in your endeavors. Welcome back, everybody. Before we keep going, I want to say that this channel is almost entirely supported directly through the generosity of my viewers. Super chats, gifted memberships, pledges on the Patreon, channel memberships that are personally purchased, things like that are how this channel keeps going. And I want to say thank you very much to everyone who is a part of making that work. And if you're currently someone who is not actively supporting, but you're interested in doing so, there's a number of great options. I have a Patreon linked in the description. So does Bent Hoven, my co-host for Kent with Bent. There are Amazon wish lists linked in the description, I believe, for both me and Vishanti, and also for Bent. So let me just double check. Yep, all three of us have Amazon wish lists. You can get us some books. I think I have a French press in there because I want to start making cold brew coffee, and it's easier with a French press. Mostly because coffee has been giving me too much heartburn lately, and cold brew coffee doesn't do that because it's way less acidic. So yeah. There you go. But like, yeah, books. There's dice. There's I have a computer monitor because my right monitor is slowly dying, which is unfortunate. But yeah, and if you go on, there's also the channel memberships. There's a join button right below this. Channel memberships start at $1.99 a month. You can go all the way up to $20 a month if you want to. The Patreon starts at $1 a month. You can go all the way up to $100 if you want to. You can also get a 12% discount if you go annually. If you join either of those, you gain access to like 4 or 5 months worth of early access videos, just hours and hours. There's currently there's like 4 different video series that have not seen the light of day outside of early access yet. They're just hanging out on my channel that have just been finished. Mm-hmm. And I'm about to finish one probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. Will probably be another one up for early access. So yeah, I try to make it a good deal. And my patrons and channel members seem to think it is a good deal. So check that out. If, however, that's not your thing, you don't want to do like a monthly or annual subscription, I have a merch store. I currently am using a Dapper Dino phone case. There's Dapper Dino blankets, mugs, stickers, baby onesies, all sorts of stuff. And also Savage, Crichton et al. 1990 Cobra just gifted 5 memberships. A Madman, My Unfinished Channel, Rusty Longshanks, Borg Emporia, and Ian Chen Official all just got memberships. So let's take 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2. I need to stir this a little bit better. That was a lot of gin and not a lot of tonic. Okay, 3. That's better. 4. And 5. And I did stir it. I guess I just didn't do it enough because boy, was that gin. Goodness. All right, well, with that, guys, here we go. We're back to Gish. Unless you got anything commercially that you want to say, Vishanti. Nope. Okay. Great. Here's the thing, right? I don't care if you believe that, at least as far as this channel is concerned. I may or may not have my own personal opinions about that. It's not relevant. But that does not have to contradict science. You can just say, well, God is, the general creator of the universe, and just leave it at that, and then acknowledge that the point of Genesis is, 1, to give etiologies to a particular ethnic group from the Levant, 2, to give theological points, and if you want to, you can say 3, it's inspired by God to give you these theological points. But that does not have to inform your view of the scientific nature of the world, right? Like, it doesn't have to. So knowledge is generally justified true belief. I'm going to leave it up to everyone else to decide whether it's true. I don't think Dwayne Gish could justify it. I don't think he knows it. I'm going to say that. Oh, good, because the solar system is definitely as old as the universe. I swear, if he does the same thing that other creationists do, where he's like, well, let's see how old the moon is to see how old the universe is, I don't even know what I'll do. Because they all seem to do it, and I hate it so much. Because, of course, everyone in science believes that the moon was created on the same day as the Big Bang. Okay. That's more or less true. Yeah, those are pretty common things that you can see around galaxies. Yeah, I'll give it to you. I have no idea if that part's true. Doesn't seem obviously unreasonable to me, though. Hmm? I'm I'm gonna let him cook, but like I really need a good argument for that. Hmm.
You use nitrogen to form a star, Dwayne.
Yeah. He's just talking about diffusion, and here's the thing, man. You're not a flurf. You don't have to pretend that gravity doesn't exist and that it can do things like collapse gas clouds into denser regions. Like this math has all been worked out. Like we know exactly how cold gas has to be, what kinds of dust particles. In fact, actually it can't just be gas, it actually has to have collected into dust particles, but those dust particles are still primarily composed of things that normally we would call gas. So for instance, what do you call it when a few dozen hydrogen atoms clump together? Well, astronomers call that dust, but you'd probably just call that, like, I don't know, frozen hydrogen or something, or maybe even liquid. It's not clear because we don't encounter that on Earth, but we know it occurs out in space. And that's what tends to start collapsing. Is it's not really in a gas per se, right? There's little bits of dust particles that are primarily composed of hydrogen. So it's not just opening a tank of gas. And sure, if you opened a tank of any gas into the vacuum that you just brought with you in a shuttle that's already at a relatively high temperature and pressure, yeah, it's going to expand and it's probably not going to collapse together anytime soon. But that's not how star formation works. Star formation starts with very, very cold dust clouds, primarily composed of hydrogen dust, which is a weird thing to think about, but it's true. And so, yeah, this is not just opening a canister of nitrogen in the room. Yeah, it's almost like that there are other forces at work on Earth, like the gravity of the Earth or the relatively high temperatures of Earth, that, might preclude star formation in the context of your church building. Dwayne, taking a drink for, well, we couldn't form a star inside this church, so I guess it can't happen in space. Yeah, okay, Dwayne, that's totally a great comparison. Alex Markle, the only thing coming out of Gish these days is gas. I don't know. He's probably got some solid stuff left. There's big number, therefore God, everybody. If you have big number, therefore God on your bingo sheets, make sure you mark it off.
That's an understatement, but yes.
It's really not.
Why is it improbable? Hydrogen and helium, like...
Yeah, it's only improbable if you just ignore the fact that gravity is a thing. That's it. That's it. That's the only reason it's improbable, is if you ignore gravity.
Those are the first two elements to form, but improbable.
I mean, he's literally just going full-on flurf mode, right? Where, like, he just doesn't understand what gravity is. Because this is the same argument as, like, well, how can you have a vacuum next to an atmosphere with pressure? You can't have a gas at pressure without a container. So I guess space is fake. No. Now, granted, he's not going as far with it as most flirts do, right? He's not actually making the claim that the atmosphere is impossible, but he's doing the same thing, which is just pretending that gravity doesn't exist for no particularly good reason that I could think of. Imagine people studying stars. They're studying stars. What a crazy coincidence. Who could have thought it?
Something like gravity and fusion?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. But like also I just love this whole like, well, you know, scientists are working on this. Therefore, what, it didn't happen? You couldn't happen because scientists still have questions about it? I'm taking a drink for just more blatant God of the Gaps. And also, since 1999, we've learned a lot more about stellar formation. But even in 1999, we had things like telescopes that could image star-forming regions of the Milky Way. So we were watching stars form, the same stars we're watching form right now. Not really. Stars tend to form in smallish regions, and star clusters are just, well, I mean, they vary in their origin, right? But the ones that are not quite in the galactic plane, which most of these sort of closed star clusters are probably the result of an extragalactic cloud of primarily hydrogen and a little bit of helium that was disrupted by some other passing body with gravity, right? Like maybe another dwarf galaxy, another cloud of gas, something like that, or maybe two clouds of gas actually ended up colliding, and if they're cold enough, they can stick together. And again, these exist out in deep space, so while they're existing as just a gas and dust cloud, they're going to be extremely cold. We're talking like maybe 3 or 4 Kelvin, right? Ridiculously cold. And then they start collapsing, and they start forming stars. And only after they start collapsing does this actual temperature start to increase as that potential energy starts turning into kinetic and then thermal energy. But by then, the force of gravity has overcome the internal gas pressure from things like Boyle's law, so you still get infalling gas because you've already surpassed that problem while the matter was still cold. And there you go. That's the whole explanation. It's not that mysterious. Now, it's really cool, and it took us a long time to learn all of that. I don't know exactly how much of it was known in 1999, but yeah, no, this is not improbable. This is more inevitable. Just drink for more.
Only improbable if you just think gravity doesn't exist.
Yeah, let's just drink for more Flurf level idiocy. My unfinished channel for $5 says, saying checkmate atheist is always a good enough reason. Yeah. Although I also do sometimes say, like, checkmate Christians when it comes to really, really dumb arguments. Like, hey, how could Jesus find people named Peter and Paul and Mark in the Middle East? Checkmate Christians. Like, oh my god. Please stop. You don't have to. You could just not be dumb.
Evolutionary astronomers.
Yeah, that's not
a
thing.
Are the stars biological? Are they alive? Like what?
As it turns out, no. No, they're not. Yeah, just taking a drink for that one. Evolutionary astronomy. So, here's the thing, Dwayne. I will grant you that in 1999, we did not know as much as we do now. However, you want to know the cool thing about how galaxies form? It's basically the same thing that causes chords, like musical chords. So, as you might know, particle and quantum physics is largely dominated mathematically by the math associated with waves, right? You have a probability wave that determines where things will end up being when they are observed. Now, when the universe had a very, very small scale, such that all points in the universe were much closer together now than they were, then than they are now, this quantum weirdness, this wave-like nature of everything, was one of the dominant effects. And one of the things that resulted in was various places where wave patterns would construct. They would come together constructively, and other areas where they would come together destructively. The constructive interference areas are areas of higher density, and the destructive interference areas are areas of lower density, which means you have a somewhat foamy or bubbly density pattern to the entire universe. which again means that on net, parts of the universe are going to feel a actual directional attraction. If the entire universe were evenly distributed with matter and it was completely the same in all directions, then it's true. Galaxies wouldn't form. And that is the naive prediction that you would make out of a Big Bang model if you didn't know about the weirdness of quantum mechanics. And so it turns out that not only did this set up these weird low and high density areas, but it also actually set up real sound waves traveling throughout the universe back when it was dense enough that fluid mechanics were a big part of what was going on. And so, yeah, we have actual sound waves to thank, sound waves created by quantum wackiness to actually thank for the formation of galaxies, galaxy clusters, superclusters, voids, supervoids, all that came together ultimately the same way that you play several notes at a time to make a fun, full-sounding chord with music. Cool. I think that's awesome. And you know what? Whether or not a god set that up, either way, I think it's really awesome. And the fact that Dwayne Gish is just like, yeah, but maybe some guy just said, and let there be light. And that's how they got there. Like, that is a much, much more boring thing to go with. And like, it's fine from a theological standpoint, as far as I'm concerned. It's like, oh, well, you know, God's the general creator of the universe. Great. But how cool is it to know how that actually came about? With like actual sound waves, constructive and destructive interference. I think it's a lot cooler to actually know that. But if we all listen to Dwayne Gish, we would just stop investigating. Because you know what? The answer's already in the Bible. I'm sorry, I think I just bumped my mic up. Sorry about that. And that's one of the things I really hate about young Earth creationism, is it stifles curiosity. It stifles scientific investigation. Like, you get James Tour, right? Self-describes himself as someone who says to students, you shouldn't go into origin of life research. There's no point. Don't do it. That is stifling the future research. He's trying to make sure that no one researches this thing. Also, DM Luca was a trial by confirmed wing for $2 says, I refuse to not be... yeah, basically. And creationists will do the same thing. Like, they don't want people researching the Big Bang. They don't want people researching evolutionary biology. They just want people to stop. And you know what? No, we shouldn't stop. We should continue with these scientific endeavors. Whether or not we come to conclusions that are compatible with the young Earth creationist theology, I don't care. When reality contradicts your theology, as far as I'm concerned, reality wins. There you go. I like how he said they didn't form the way they suggest, which means that they actually do have something to say about how these things formed. Dwayne Gish just doesn't like it, which, I mean, he's entitled to, but he's also pretending to just have no clue, which they obviously do, because that's how they were able to make these suggestions. This is definitely more. We've found more since then, but you know what? Whatever. It was 1999. I'm not going to fault him too much for that one. That's true. We do know more about the local solar system than we do about the rest of space, in large part thanks to really cool spacecraft.
At this video, and it's such analog horror vibe right now.
Oh yeah, no.
Because you know, half of my wallpapers are 4K or higher resolution of Jupiter and Io, Callisto, Ganymede, and various nebulae. So, looking at this, I'm like, it's like Gemini Home Entertainment right here.
Hey, you know what? I like that. I like that aesthetic. Man, maybe I should make an analog horror thing where I have like an episode of Space Pictures. That would be cool.
Please, yes.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Hey, he got that right. We'll take a drink. Good job.
He did, yeah.
Also true. Take a drink. I mean, at this point, it's a lot more.
Now, honey.
But you know what? In 1999, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's more than that too.
Yep. But again, It's $19.99. I'm going to let it go. Well, it's a lot more, but
like,
okay, sure.
Yeah, Jupiter, according to NASA's latest estimates, it's between 80 and 95 for Jupiter.
Yeah.
And honestly, I personally think it's over 100, but I don't have the tools to observe or prove that, so.
Asked a PH.
I mean, what do you count as a moon? There's like debris all over the place, so yeah.
Asked a piezoelectric lightning Ryu, who's been a member for 7 months and is at the amniote level, says, "Sorry I'm late, but Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled AIGs." Nice. Very nice. I'll take a drink for that. Okay.
Jupiter has over 9,000 moons. It's great.
I mean, at that point, it starts to get into like, well, what counts as a moon? Does like a little piece of dust in orbit count as a moon? In that case, it probably has trillions of moons. So yeah, I personally think to be counted as a moon, you should have to be in a like roughly spherical shape because of hydrostatic equilibrium, which means I actually would argue that like Mars has 0 moons, not 2, and that Jupiter has far fewer moons than like 90. But then again,
yeah, I mean, the
astronomers don't listen to me.
Like the line between moon and satellite gets a little fuzzy.
Yeah, like, is every single particle in Saturn's ring a moon? I mean, if all it has to be is something that orbits a planet, then the answer would be yes. Meldeborn, who's been a member for 13 months and is at the Seropsid level, says, "The poo-pooing of scientific inquiry from young Earth creationists is one of their more frustrating talking points. It's almost as if the less you understand peer-reviewed science, the more appealing young Earth creationism becomes." Yeah, it is almost like that, isn't it? Horseflesh 499 says, "Very true how young Earth creationist thinking stifles curiosity. A major reason why I am no longer one. The freedom to think was life-changing." Yeah, no, I tend to agree. Actually, one of the big reasons that I stopped being a young Earth creationist was that I thought taxonomy was really, really cool as a young Earth creationist, and like I was learning about like subfamilies and, you know, like supraorders and whatnot. And I was thinking like, well, what does that mean, right? Like, what does it mean that a number of families like Giraffidae and Antilocapridae and Cervidae and Bovidae and Moschidae are in this like supraorder called Pecora, and some of them are ruminants, and like what does any of that mean? And it turns out that that actually corresponds directly to evolutionary ancestry. But as a young Earth creationist, that wasn't an option. Like, it was just a weird thing about the world that seemed true, but that I didn't have an explanation for. Like, there was no way to account for that data. And I mean, it wasn't just that, right? Like, I've told stories about how I left young Earth creationism, and that wasn't the only thing, but it was a big part of it. In the beginning, God created pelagic tunnicans.
Cove mode.
For €2 says, "I say humans made millions of Earth moons." Yeah, I mean, maybe. Do all the satellites count as moons? I don't know. I don't know what the rules are.
That's no moon.
Except it is, maybe, though, because like, wasn't it orbiting the gas giant Yavin? Yeah, so maybe it's a temporary moon of Yavin. I don't know. There are over 30 moons. That remains true, Dwayne. That remains true. When you say, okay, we found this many, we're pretty sure there's more, there are at least, and then you find more, your previous at least remains true. Right?
It is so dumb that he's like, they told us there were only 30, and now they're saying there's like 60. I'm like, yeah, because our telescopes got better.
Yeah. And also, there are at least is the same mathematically as there are more than or equal to. And the fact that it was in the more than group and not the equal to group doesn't mean that they were wrong. It's like, you know what, Vishanti, I'm going to tell you how much money is in your checking account right now. It is between 0 and $20.87 trillion. Did I get it right? Did I get it? Yep. Oh, see, I did it. I was right. Which, by the way, is the same kind of math that Russell Humphreys used to come up with his predictions for the strength of the magnetic fields of the planets. He was basically like, what's the physically largest amount of like magnetism that a planet could possibly have of this mass? And I'm going to guess somewhere between that number and like 0. And that's my guess. oh, look, it matched my predictions when we flew past Saturn. It's like, oh, yeah, that's so surprising. Okay. Rembrandt says, no, she's overdrawn. Ooh, yeah, good point. You might have a negative.
I was this close this week, so...
The only reason I have not been overdrawn like every single week is because of my audience, and I really appreciate it, by the way, guys. Because, yeah, without you, I was gonna say I'd be homeless, but no, the answer is I'd probably just get some stupid job that I hate. And I would be much more miserable. Since the time of Galileo, okay.
Very cool. What's your point?
Yep. He's just gonna say the rings can't be older than, then give some number that isn't the age of the solar system, and then say, therefore the solar system can't be that old.
And again, it's not a problem for evolutionists because the rings aren't alive.
Yeah, well, there's that, but also like there's this cool phenomenon you can have where a object can have a feature or a structure that is younger than the object itself, right? Like this house that I am in right now is an object, right? It has a food disposal thing in the sink, right? Which if you're out in Europe, you might not know about that. Most American homes have a big spinny whirly blade thing in the sink that chops up food that goes into the sink. It's a thing here. It was recently replaced with a brand new one. So is this house as old as that food disposal, or is it perhaps older, given that, I mean, I've just been living in it for longer than that thing has been in the house. So, yeah.
Someone in the chat is asking if you remember when Saturn had no rings.
So it's like a kind of thing, right? Because I was around before the current ring system formed, but like we didn't really have telescopes to go check. So I remember the time before the current ring system existed, but I wasn't aware that there was like a ring system that could or could not be there. Saturn was just a point in the sky. Lance's Paleo Corner for $10 says, some overbalance protection right here. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And
Aww.
look, I mean, financial situation did change a little bit as a result of some stuff that we're not going to super get into. But I'm not currently at risk of going, homeless or anything. And I really do appreciate that because it is because of you guys. And actually, I recently said, I wanted to get my Patreon up as a result of that. And you guys really stepped up. I went from, I think, 98 active patrons to now I have, last I checked, I think it was like 113 or something. I'll just double check because why not? No, 114. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. That is helping a lot. So, yeah. If you want to join that team, again, there's a link in the description. True, take a drink. That's not the problem. It's more that they would have like coalesced into moons and also been like ejected out of the system, fallen back down into Saturn. They don't just spread out, but like it's close enough. I'll let it go. Oh, in the beginning, God created pelagic tunicates for €2. Says, I say Dapper's house is a subject, a ghost house. I don't think this house is really old enough to realistically be a ghost house. The place I lived in over in Massachusetts for a while, that place was old enough. That house was there since like I want to say the mid 18th century, I think. It's basically one of the oldest houses still being used as a house in the United States, basically. Like, it's hard to find a house that you can buy and live in that is older than that house in the United States. It was the second house built within like 200 miles. That's a bit of an exaggeration. It's more like 50 miles, but still. I mean, that's a really big area of just nothing. And that house right there. DM Luca was a trilobite confirmed wing for $5 says, Dapper Dinosaur suppressing the truth of Troodon Trodonian radio telescope arrays. Look, man, I've known Trodon, and they could not get together a radio array. It's not that they weren't smart, right? They could probably figure it out intellectually, right? They were pretty smart guys. On average, smarter than a Ceratosaurus. But, my goodness, were they scatterbrained. Getting them to cooperate on anything other than, like, not fighting each other while they eat was like herding cats, man. Not easy to organize, Trodons. The solar system, not the universe. And they were right. Every single gap that you see, every dark line, that's where there's some body in there, clearing out that area and then shepherding the particles between into those higher density bands. Turns out they were right about that, but here's Gish to tell us how they were wrong, apparently. Well, they have since then, so let's just take a drink. Yeah, turns out this was actually a confirmed prediction. No, that's that's a conclusion that's made with the assumption in there is basically the basic assumption of science that the laws of physics are both temporally and spatially invariant. That's the big assumption of science, right? Physics today is the same as physics yesterday, and it will be the same as physics tomorrow. And that physics here and physics over there is the same. That's the basic assumption of science. What was done was the age of the solar system was measured by things like radiometrically dating asteroids and things like that. Alex Markle says, is Gish saying that's no moon? I think he's more saying there's no moon, which is similar, but not quite the same. Oh no! A feature of the solar system less old than the whole of the solar system. Hey, Dwayne.
This is just the young Earth creationist version of last Thursdayism.
Yeah. I'm going to check on when was Dwayne Gish born. Dwayne Gish birthday. Here we go. Dwayne Gish was born February 17th, minus 4.5 billion BC. Sorry, 4.5 billion BC, which would allow the solar system to be 4.5 billion years old, right? Oh, wait, nope. Actually, he was born 1921. AD 1921, or 1921 CE. I don't care how you want to measure it. So, one thing is possible. This could prove that the solar system can't be any older than, what, like 102 years? Coming up on 103 years? Okay, that's one possibility. Or maybe Dwayne is an example of something in the solar system. As far as I know, Dwayne Gish never existed outside the solar system. Something in the solar system that is younger than the solar system as a whole. In fact, we could specify Earth, right? Dwayne Gish was a feature of Earth that existed for less time than the entire Earth has existed. How crazy is that? And yeah, by the way, that is exactly the argument that I said he was going to go with, and so we'll take a drink for the correct prediction. How could anything in the solar system be younger than just the solar system? Like, I don't know, Dwayne. Seems pretty easy to me, but what do I know? Yeah, so. All right. It's not. It's not. Now, we don't currently know exactly how the current ring system formed, but there are hypotheses involving things like the breakup of older icy moons, things like that, collisions. There's a lot of possibilities, right? The problem right now is not that we don't know options, it's that we have too many options and we have to narrow them down, right? It's the same problem that we have for a lot of origin of life problems, right? Like, we know a bunch of different ways to synthesize various classes of chemicals that are important to life, but we don't know which ones were the most important in the original origin of life. So we have to do research to figure that out. We're like spoiled for choice, basically. So.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. We'll
Yep.
take a drink. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're much more faint on everything but Saturn, but yeah, they do exist. In fact, actually, it's possible that while the current Saturn ring system is a relatively recent origin in terms of like the lifespan of the whole solar system, that rings as a whole, especially relatively faint rings, are fairly frequent things to form and then eventually disperse and form again. So it's actually possible that for most of its history, Saturn, as well as the other giant planets, have had some kind of ring system. It's just that they typically probably weren't as spectacular as the current ring system of Saturn. I love that it's like the color enhanced by computers. Do you mean you just turned up the saturation? Because that's what that sounds like. And like whenever I hear like computer enhanced, I think of like weird CSI things and not some guy in Photoshop going like saturation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Computer enhance.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, how could they not be? Like each set of rings is going to have its own thickness, its own orbital velocity. I mean, how? In order for an object to share the orbit of another object, they have to be like, what would it mean for there to be two identical rings, right? That would just be one ring. In order for there to be more than one ring, they have to be different. I don't understand what the point is that he's trying. I'm just going to take a drink because my brain is hurting. No, it's the same problem that you're pretending that evolutionists quote unquote have, even though this has nothing to do with evolution. But like it's like saying every rock is unique. Isn't that a miracle? Like, no, how could it be otherwise? How could you get two perfectly identical rocks? What process would that be? If you wanted to show me a miracle, then show me a planet where every rock is identical, because goodness, that would be hard to explain. He's getting it like exactly backwards. The fact that everything is unique is like what you would expect from a universe full of stochastic processes that just kind of forms things haphazardly occasionally. If you found a planet where every single rock was like the same size, shape, composition, density, and had like the exact same system of like, like boundaries between the crystals making it up, that would be a really good candidate for an actual miracle right there. Because that is not what we would expect nature to do.
Those arcs.
They said arcs.
Yeah, arcs.
Yeah. What?
What other shape are they supposed to be?
Oh, no, he's talking about the fact that there are bright spots and then other darker spots in there, which highlights the bright spots as arcs within the full ring.
Mm-hmm.
Which is unusual. I probably couldn't. Okay, look, it is true that is a question that science should seek to understand, right? There should be an explanation for these that we find and we explain it. But what Dwayne would like us to do is to take all of that inquiry, all of that research, all of that gaining of knowledge, toss it in the trash, and then when someone asks, hey, how did the rings of Uranus get to be weird with these dark and light spots within the same ring orbiting around the same area? Dwayne would like us to say, don't worry about it, it's God. Which, like, I mean, it doesn't tell me anything useful. What do I get out of that? Even if it's true, that doesn't allow me to predict future data. It doesn't help me learn anything about the actual formation of the solar system. None of this doesn't help, right? When it comes to science, there's a reason that we exclude God and similar things from science. It's because it doesn't lead to future avenues of research. When you say, don't worry about it, it's God, from a scientific standpoint, it's the exact same thing as when you're trying to figure out why this part of your DM's new, campaign world that they just invented is that way. And the DM just says, don't worry about it, a wizard did it. which is just saying, hey, there's no rational explanation. It's just magic. You don't have to worry about that. There's no deeper meaning. There's no deeper explanation. That's just how it is. And again, that is just anti-intellectual. It is anti-scientific.
Yeah.
It is. If people were to take that seriously broadly, it would just stunt human development. Which, overall, while I do have my problems with Homo sapiens as a species, I think, you monkeys are okay, and I like you overall. And I would prefer that you keep learning and keep advancing technologically. And then maybe that might allow you to do things like, escape the inevitable death of the solar system. Or even just, fix some of the stuff that you messed up already here while it still lasts. That would be nice.
Some of us are working on it.
Yeah. Or at least just be nicer to each other, because now you have more understanding, and so you feel less need to, kill each other over resources that are less scarce now as a result of higher technology. That'd also be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally the only quote-unquote problem is, oh, hey, these can't be primordial. Okay, problem solved. Right? Because the only way for it to be a problem is if these rings have to be primordial. But they don't. So, not a problem. Kind of.
I mean, it's closer in size than Mars is.
I mean, it's actually a lot closer in size than Mars is. I think, isn't Venus like 0.98 Earth masses or something like that?
Yeah, and like Mars is around half the size of Earth-ish.
Oh, sorry, 0.815. So Venus is 0.815 Earth masses, and then Mars. Also, the radius of Earth is 6,371 kilometers, and Venus is 6,052 kilometers. So it's really, really close in terms of radius.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mars is only like a third of the radius, and it's 0.107 Earth masses. So Mars is a lot smaller than Earth. Yeah. Actually, the entire surface area of Mars is roughly the same as the surface area of Earth that's covered by land. So Mars has about a third
that's teeny.
the surface area of Earth overall. Yeah, Mars is pretty small. Okay. So yeah, there are ways in which it's also, in terms of its chemical composition, like silicates and irons and whatnot, from what we can tell, it's also fairly similar in terms of just like the bulk atomic makeup of Venus. So yeah, there are ways in which Venus is like a twin of Earth, but obviously there are ways in which it's not. He's gonna do the Venus is spinning the wrong way. I can tell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's gravity. We'll take a drink for, once again, not understanding gravity. No, also gravity. We'll take another drink for Dwayne Gish not knowing what gravity is. Because,
like
hey, why not go full
I should be channeling Desert File right now.
Yeah, I feel like that clip would be even more likely to get us demonetized, though. Because,
I mean, if you cut out the R word.
Yeah, but that's a big part of the clip.
I know.
Yeah. Well, also, he swears a lot more within the clip.
True.
So, yeah,
True.
that does. If you guys don't know what the Desert File clip is, I mean, just watch anything from like the mid 2010s, like debunking era. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not evolutionary, but okay. Technically, you can't make that as a firm prediction. What you can say is the expected direction of orbit of any given planet should be the same as the rest of them. But there can be exceptions as a result of things like orbital capture. So I'm going to use Kerbal Space Program as an example, right? Kerbal Space Program has a big gas giant in it. And if you want to actually capture into orbit around that, it requires a lot of fuel because you need to change your speed a lot in order to actually capture into orbit around it. But it also has orbiting it a bunch of different moons. Now, if you can actually go in front of one of those moons in its orbit, you will swing around it in the reverse direction that it orbits, and you will be able to capture into orbit. But actually, if you do that close enough to one of the more massive moons, like Tylo or something, and you actually get really close to its surface, you can actually capture into a retrograde orbit, which means that because of the gravitational interaction between you, the main body, in this case it's a planet in Kerbal Space Program called Joule, and one of its moons, you can actually enter into a stable orbit going the wrong way around. And what actually would happen in the real world is you would actually take some of the velocity of the moon and give it to your spaceship. Now, in terms of spaceships and planets, which is one of the things NASA does, by the way, I mean, the amount of momentum taken away from the planet or moon is going to be immeasurably small compared to, the boost that you get for your spacecraft. But in terms of like different moons or planets, you could actually still have that happen, and then there will be significant exchanges of angular momentum. And as long as the total angular momentum of the system, including the new body being introduced, is the same, it all works out just fine. So I don't think he's going to say it yet. In fact, we're going to be closing up pretty soon. But
I was going to say, yeah, like doing those gravity assists and things like that, that's how we got to Pluto so quick.
Yeah.
Rather than just going straight there. It
doesn't cost you extra fuel. You don't have to just fire rocket engines for months, which most craft can't do that. This isn't the Expanse. What? Those rockets run on pure efficiency. Just fill up the old efficiency tank. Also, Savage Crichton et al. 1990 Cobra says, Gish should know what gravity is, given that he's nearly dense enough to have an event horizon. Nice. So, we're going to close this up right now after we've gone into a little bit of angular momentum. And we're going to probably back this up a few seconds to really get the full angular momentum thing next time. If we don't, yell at me so that we do, basically. So, that goes for both the chat and you, Vishanti. You can yell at me too.
Okay.
Not that you need my permission. You would do it anyway if you wanted to. Yeah.
It's true.
All right, so Vishanti, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell the audience about before we get out of here?
Yes, I have a collaboration video with Fossil Daddy coming out either maybe this week or next week. I don't know how far along we are editing it. We're also going to be dunking on L.A. Marzulli, saying that Native Americans couldn't have built their mounds.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's going to be fun. And then I'm not sure what the specific date is, but I'm slated to go on Reason to Doubt with Jordan to discuss anti-Semitism in the atheist community. So,
yeah, there's a surprising amount of that for people who claim to have quote-unquote deconstructed.
Yeah, so we're just going to talk about that and maybe help people kind of do that less.
That would be nice, because, yeah, there's a fair bit of it. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up on this channel. So, on Tuesday, we are doing Jackson with Jackson Wheat, talking about Charles Jackson, Bad Jackson, if you will. Then so that is Tuesday, the 24th of October, 2023. Then on the 26th of October, Thursday, at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be hearing from the... we're going to hear more ICR facts. We're going to do facts 43 through 52. So that's going to include Turkey comas, extraterrestrial life, Fibonacci numbers, the wing, and flight, biblical giants, let's see, museum, something about museums, let's see, a whole bunch of other stuff. It'll be a fun time, I think. So yeah, check that out. And then on Saturday, currently the plan is to just do another Gish with Vish, where I do that whole backing up thing. And then, yes, on Halloween Day, at the normal time, 6 Eastern, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, we will be having an episode of Kent with Bent on Halloween. I don't know how Halloween
wish I could
themed
be
it will
there,
be.
but I'm going to a Static X and Seven Dust concert, so...
How dare
Sorry.
you? And on Spooky Day,
I like my
too.
evil disco.
I mean, okay, I can't really blame you too much. So, yeah. Strawberry Vein for $2 says, yay, I missed the whole thing. Oh, sorry about that, Strawberry Vein. But you know what, though? We're going to get out of here. And if you are a member, a channel member, or a patron, feel free to head over to the Discord server, where we're going to watch episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, where the Power Rangers fight demons. Just explicitly demons. That's the bad guys for that season. They're actual demons who come out of the underworld after some idiots open up a sarcophagus in ancient Egypt, and then for some reason the demons settle in California. Don't worry about that part, though. Just don't worry about it. All right, everybody. I'll talk to y'all later. I hope to see all of you on Tuesday for Jackson with Jackson, and I hope you have a safe rest of your weekend and rest of your week, and I'll see y'all later. Hey, before you second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovand, Whispers, Denny5252, Elron Teller, Phil Prevara, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Sphincter of Doom, Strawberry Vein, Star Runner, and Dr. Tapioca Weasel. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.